Welcome to the Beautiful Game Plan podcast, produced by Focus Shift Films and sponsored by Welsh sports fans. I'm your host, Daniel J. Harris. I'm a filmmaker and entrepreneur working across sport, and I'm a huge fan of sports content. This podcast is my chance to meet amazing people who are doing amazing things in the sports content space and to share their stories with you in the hope that it inspires ideas. First series began whilst I was still working as commercial director at Eastleigh Media. Let's dive in and meet our guest. I'd like to introduce today Julian Gratton, who is a vastly experienced advertising professional. He's worked on lots of high-end advertising and marketing campaigns inside and outside of football, and he's a Bradford City fan. So Julian, hello, welcome. So tell the people at home a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So, as you mentioned, I'm a creative director. I'm a copy-based creative director. So, as well as kind of helping a wide range of brands and companies come up with great ideas that cut through and get them a healthy share on return on investment. I also help a lot of brands with their tone of voice, their messaging, looking at audience segmentation, motivations, objections, and how we can overcome objections, certainly, and leverage motivations. I do a lot with behavioral science and persuasion and response techniques. But my core kind of love within that is great ideas and telling them on multiple kind of platforms. You and I met about 5-6 years ago when we were doing some stuff for Adidas in Monaco, I think it was, in Orlando. And my experience covers all kind of realms of sport. I've done stuff for NHL in the States. I've just literally finished a project. I can't tell you for who, but it's for let's call it a famous lager brand and one of the top football teams in the world. And I've done quite a lot with various kind of Premier League teams and consultancy level with some kind of championship teams as well. Mainly advising them on how they can maximize their marketing budget, primarily because, when you get down to championship level, when you get down to League One, League Two, I think Manchester City's marketing budget is about 80 million. By the time that you get down to, League Two, League One level, you're talking about 10 grand, 20 grand. So, spending any of that external money, it needs to be spent really well. And also the messaging, everything from subject lines and emails to social media posts, has to be optimized with what I call persuasion and response techniques to maximize kind of interaction.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's an absolute kind of minefield if you get it kind of wrong, but with the right knowledge, you can deliver messages to audiences that engages with them and brings them in. So first of all, before we dive into the kind of detail on your work, tell us about your relationship with football. So how did you get into football? Why did you love football?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a Bradford City fan, which hasn't been the best of journeys. we had a great run 10 years ago, famously meeting Swansea in the Capital One Cup final and getting thrashed. But the journey to that and that season with Phil Parkinson in charge, who's famously now in charge of Wrexham, was fabulous. And I was at the Bradford City Fire as well when I was 11 years old. Wow! And that certainly left an emotional imprint on me as a child and my club and the relationship with the club. I absolutely adore Bradford City. I like many other people, have a B team. I love watching Manchester City because how can you not love watching Manchester City? One of my best friends is a huge Liverpool fan, so I've been to quite a few Liverpool games as well. And I just love when you see free-flowing, beautiful football. How can you not enjoy it? The sad thing is you don't get much of that at Bradford City.
You can't be slating Sparky up there. Listen,
I was overjoyed when Sparky was announced as manager. I kind of think hopefully the signs are there after our last result that he might have got things right. Listen, he needs to take us up this season. We've languished in League Two for far too long. We're a club that brings in a gate of 15,000 home fans minimum For Leeds. I mean, not since the days of Manchester City being in the lower leagues has anyone seen gates like that. And Manchester City, we're getting gates of like 40,000. And listen, look, I don't think that we're ever a Premiership team. I think our Premiership 2 years were a fluke. I'd like to see us as a stable Championship team. I'd just like to see good, entertaining football with the odd cup run. And I just want to go to the games and be entertained. Sadly, the last 10 games, that hasn't really existed at Bradford City. It has been poor. But hopefully, we won confidently at the weekend. Andy Cook is back. He's got a hat trick at the weekend. So I'm hoping this is the launch pad to a great season now.
Fingers crossed. So back to your career then, Jeremy, in the industry. You're a big advocate of establishing the emotion you want at the start of the creative process. Like you do a lot of adverts. A lot of sports ads tend to kind of evoke that emotion, rightly so. They mimic what a fan will experience on the terrace. Is there anything out there at the moment or recently that sticks in your mind that has kind of delivered that emotion?
I mean, I actually think the golden age, of let's call it football advertising, really was the 90s. You had some really great adverts by Nike, famously, the kind of Battle in Hell and various kind of other things, and we have had a lot of kind of good, great adverts in the past, and I think it's still out there, but I think the days of those big kind of flashy ads are kind of gone. I do quite like the Sky advert, the circus, because I think, I think what that is all about is entertainment. You mentioned there about emotions in advertising. As you said, I'm a massive believer in at least understanding what emotion you want to trigger into people, and I think the one club who consistently has done that ever since the takeover of Manchester City is Manchester City. So I worked on Manchester City's ECRM campaign, so customer retention management, email marketing, social media, various digital marketing. This is in the kind of like the fledgling days of kind of before really social media really kicked off. It was still out there, but email marketing was a primary kind of focus. And one of the things that they got a marketing director who also understood the power of emotions. And one of the things that he did was the first thing that he understood was that the takeover was such an emotional kind of thing for a lot of Manchester City fans, but also it drove in a lot of new fans and therefore could have made older fans a little bit isolated. So what he understood was that, right, okay, well, we need to basically play on those emotions. So we should have campaigns that focus on nostalgia, and tell the great stories of that are out there about various kind of Manchester City players, moments, matches, and things like that. But also then celebrate the new, and also understand that how to basically drive people to the stadium, but also then increase conversations and engagement for fans who aren't anywhere near the stadium, specifically in the Far East and various kind of other things. And we did a lot of work with that and built various kind of, what I call the art of Japanese warfare, which is when faced with two hills, which one do you run up? Well, don't worry about it, just run up a hill. And if it's the wrong hill, get back down and try something else. So there was a lot of testing and learning. And I think then one of the things that really kind of kicked off a few years later was then the emergence of the video fanzines. So the video fanzines. So and that really has kind of kicked off in the last couple of years as well. And all of them are based on emotions. They're based on passion. That's it. It's passionate people talking about things that they love, which is football.
Yeah, they can be a little bit of a slippery slope though, can't they? Like Arsenal Fan TV rose to prominence because their fans were so unhappy So I mean, you can kind of live by the sword and die by the sword a little bit, can't you? So you've got to be careful with some of those things.
But I think one of the things that Manchester City were quick to do was embrace those creators. So when Manchester City got taken over, one of the things that they did was they struck a deal with Endemol. And I was kind of involved in some of this, where basically Endemol basically supplied them with the camera people, the cameras, all the kit for them to be able to create their own content. So essentially, Manchester City internally had its own production studio. And this is years back. We're talking like 9-10 years ago, however it is since they were taken over. And that was really cutting edge at its time. They were the first ones to kind of do that. Now, put that again, and money was no object. It was basically just try everything. And one of the things that they did very, very quickly was engage the creators, the passionate creators who, let's say, weren't the radical ones who were, going to get you into trouble, but they were just genuine fans who were creating great content and were having constructive conversations. Now, put that against another team who I won't mention their name, who I did some work with, where honestly it was a nightmare. They basically treated you like you were basically, you should be privileged to work for them. They didn't want to pay you any money, and basically you work for free because then you could say you'd done some work for this team, and then anything over a certain amount of money had to be personally signed off by the owners of the club, and it was an absolute nightmare. And their vision for what sports marketing or football marketing could do in a very, very kind of changing, fluid landscape. Bearing in mind that the main sources of social media at this time were YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. There was no TikTok at this time, so Snapchat hadn't even come about. So they were. It was for me. It was a real eye opener between what a great marketing visionary can do for a football club, because Manchester City hired, I can't remember his surname, a guy called Julian, another guy called Julian, and he was bloody brilliant. He was, honestly, he really got it. Now, it helped that he had an abundance of money to spend, but over the years they've got shrewder and shrewder with that money at Manchester City. They've basically made the mistakes, they've got it working, and largely for football clubs. I mentioned to you that I've just done a campaign with a beer company and a top Premiership team. The only thing that the Premiership team needs to do is give them access to players. All the money and all the ideas and all the thing comes from the client, the sponsorship. So sports, kind of the way that a lot of clubs are able to do their marketing has changed, in the fact that basically they're just supplying artists, i.e. the footballers, and as long as they approve the concept, everything else is taken care of by the third party. Let's say Heineken, for example. So all of that is fronted by them. So, but for me, I'm more interested in how the lower league clubs, if you're not a top Premiership side, or you aren't Wrexham and you've got a huge kind of, movie actor at the helm that's able to kind of open doors and get you viewership, how can the lower league clubs, with only 20-30 grand in a marketing budget, kind of leverage their voice and attract, because all of it is about engaging new fans, encouraging them to come to match days, getting them to kind of spend money on various kind of residuals like hats, scarves, and various kind of things, getting them to, doing kind of match day experiences, but also kind of utilizing the ground in other ways, birthdays, conferences, and things like that. Manchester City had a huge push on getting the Etihad used, not during non-match days. When the Etihad first opened, didn't do gigs there at all. When I was started working with them, we had a big push on making sure the Etihad was seen as a gig venue. And not only that, but also for conferences and various other things as well. So, and I do believe that the answer of this for a lot of football clubs because of the fact that they can make a lot of money on YouTube revenue. It's all about emotions. And you think about the basic emotions: joy, fear, sadness. Within those, there's a huge amount of other emotions that you can leverage to create compelling stories that might generate you 10 to 50,000 views per video, and get you a huge amount of subscribers that could actually create a convincing revenue stream for the club. The problem is a lot of football clubs aren't recognizing this. I mean, if I look at Bradford City as an example, it is really bad. The fact that their YouTube channel is pretty reactionary. It's basically mostly about match days. Here's a pre-match conference. Here's some highlights from the game. Here's a post-match interview, and then we might do a little bit of a throwback to here's some footage that we've managed to buy off Sky or something like that, and we've put out. But actually, they're missing a massive trick here, because by engaging with some of the YouTube creators, they could actually just give some of these creators player access, give them behind the scenes access. These people will pay to create the content for you, and you can always do a revenue share. But Manchester City and some of the other Premiership teams have already twigged onto this, but just not trickled down into the lower leagues. And I always find it really baffling. I mean, largely, you've got to be sympathetic that maybe some of the marketing professionals in these clubs aren't the shrewdest. There may be, it's one of those things where they don't want to stick the head above the parapet. They're just maintaining a base level and things like that. But there are so many shrewd and clever ways that football clubs could add an extra revenue stream. And a lot of it is through third-party creators. But also as well, when you think about access to older players, access to various kind of people, who can tell compelling stories about clubs, previous owners, people who basically, look after the pitch. There's so many beautiful little stories that you can tell, create a little 5-minute kind of video, 10-minute video on various things, and just flood the YouTube channel and test and learn and segment and try and understand audiences. And then once you've got that, I mean, this more than anyone, once you've got your big content, it's how you slice and dice and push out across other media, that all of a sudden something that you've shot for YouTube can, you've basically shot it in a different format, suddenly is on TikTok, and therefore you've got another revenue stream. So I think one of the things that, that interests me is about, right, how can you use emotions and carve up the emotions to create these granular stories, and how can you push them out on that? And going back to the kind of the big TV things, I kind of think that's gone now. And I think actually what it is, especially when we think about the younger generations coming through, they're not interested in those big TV adverts anymore. They're interested in the beautiful, emotional little stories that happen on social media that they can share. If you think about some of the most powerful kind of things that are shared, I saw something the other day where there was this woman who was going through chemotherapy. She's in the barbers and she's having her head shaved. Emotional moment. And all of a sudden, 3 members of her family come behind her and start shaving their heads with her, and it's like, I'm welling up now kind of telling it, it's a beautiful, powerful emotion. Now, you can have lots of those little stories happen at football clubs. Margaret, who's volunteered in the ticket office for 30 years, suddenly gets a bunch of flowers. There's all these little moments that football clubs are missing out on.
Riverside Sports Bar with Welsh sports fans is Newport's premier sports bar and has been voted best sports bar at the Welsh Hospitality Awards. With a range of huge TVs, an incredible food menu with burgers, dirty fries and much more, including vegan options, it is the place to watch sport. Visit www.riversidesportsbarnewport.com to find out more.
As you've been talking, there's a couple of things I've kind of been thinking in my head. So we've done a little bit of work with Swindon Town recently. So at East Street Media, we run the Welsh Football Fans Facebook page. We've got our own vodka, North Wales Sea Salt and Caramel vodka called Wales Away. Now, we had so many bottles of that, and we've been selling that to the Welsh Football Fans audience. And we did a limited run of that same vodka with a different label on for Swindon Town. So what we did was we designed the bottle around their the 30th anniversary of them winning the playoffs to get promoted to the Premier League. We used the footage from that game, cut with some shots of the bottle at the stadium, made a video that was like a minute or 2 minutes long, give it to Swindon. Swindon put it out. Over the space of a weekend, we sold 95% of the stock. So we used that emotion from that, an emotion and the nostalgia from that 30th anniversary, showed them footage they've seen 100 times alongside a bottle which represented the kit and the colours from that time. Swindon were happy to partner with us. We've got a revenue share with them. They put out the advert. People buy the bottle. We then make a commission payment to Swindon Town. They've made money by giving us a little bit of access, partnering with us on a product, and there's money in the bank for them for not much work. So that's a good example of how you can find partnerships. You can tap into that emotion and that nostalgia to sell products. So that's one thing we've done recently. And then also kind of thinking about emotion. My favorite advert of all time is the Nike Euro 2004, I think it was, Guy Ritchie advert.
Brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely.
All through the point of view of someone. And I love that. And I'm only thinking about it now and I'm thinking, why do I love that? And it's emotion. This is someone from nowhere who goes on to play for Arsenal and goes on to play for his country. And you can be anything. And I think that resonates with me as well. I'm a boy from work.
It's boyhood dreams, isn't it? Who does it? That taps into a boyhood dream. I mean, one of the things that always frustrates me a lot about football clubs is that they don't recognise that one of the things that they are not in short supply of is great stories. Okay? Yes. They have an abundance of great stories. Now, if you ever go to an ex-player dinner, right? You can go and Google this stuff, and see it all over, Stuart Pearce at some dinner telling great stories about Gaza and things like that. Now, think about kind of, if I think about Bradford City and I think about, I always remember the season that we went up into the Premiership, the 99 season with, we had Robbie Blake up front and Lee Mills and things like that. Now just sitting down with 10 minutes, going around to Lee Mills' house or getting Lee Mills, walk around the pitch and getting him to tell some stories, some funny stories about that season. There must be loads. The whole thing about Stuart McCall getting drunk and falling off the car. And things like that, and and you could basically spend an hour with a player getting them to tell you some stories. You've probably got 30 or 40, TikTok little kind of stories, little funny anecdotes, little YouTube shorts, beta shorts, and things like that.
Talk
and a long form video
is filled with that, isn't it? Talk
Absolutely.
Sport. When they get someone on, they tell a story, clip it up, get it out there.
And that's what I always kind of think about football, because if they really thought about it, they basically just stick, a little bit of kind of money, like with a company like yours, and just basically get you to just go in, do a day's filming with like X amount of players, get it out there, get the SMO right, the social media optimization, so it gets found, and just basically they'll be surprised by the potential revenue stream they could create for them. And it's like, and I kind of, the thing, the misconception is that it's easier for teams like Manchester City to kind of do this. If you think about Bradford City, for example, there's a 15,000 solid base who go every week to every home game. There's probably another 10,000 there engaged, and I can prove that because when we played Arsenal, we had a sold out. So there's 25,000 people there. Okay, 4,000 from Arsenal, but 20,000 views, potential views, and then you've got the residual views as well. There are the armchair, kind of passive fans.
It's not my club, but it's an interesting story. I've heard it. I've heard someone say it, or I didn't know that. These stories that are kind of whispered in kind of working men's clubs within in distance of the stadium actually can resonate with football fans anyway.
Funny story's a funny story. Everybody loves humor, and tapping into these core things of humor is a massive one to get into. If you can create just a really entertaining kind of source of content that just surprises and delights people, they'll keep watching. That's it. It's just as simple as that. I always say, there's the famous Brian Clough, I think it's Brian Clough, quote that football is a simple game made complicated by idiots or something like that. And he always said, two big men at the back, two fast wingers, and a big man up front. It's very, that was his approach. And advertising and marketing is exactly, it's a very, very simple game made complicated by idiots. Yeah. And you just have got to basically play to the strengths of what is out there. We are in an untold generation like never before, where the ability to create compelling content can be done by a kid in his bedroom now. Yeah. I watched the Newport game at the weekend for Bradford City, and the guy who normally does the post-match reviews for Bradford City, the fan-based ones, a channel called SHD, he couldn't go to the game, so he did his first ever live stream while watching it on iPlayer. And I was sat watching it with my dad, who's recovering from a stroke, and we were watching it, and I had the match on one screen on iPlayer, and I had this kids channel on my phone, and this is the transmedia generation. We are multiple screen consumers at the same time. So, I don't understand why a lot of clubs aren't having, an old pro, just basically, somebody connected to the club, just doing a live stream while the game's on another channel. People will be watching it, and they can just sit there and talk about it. It's like, oh yeah, and they can just drop in little old stories, and they're reading comments, and oh yeah, do you remember that season? Yeah, that was great. Oh, he's a great fullback, wasn't he, for us? And they could just be telling lots of kind of little stories, and all of a sudden, the match day experience for those who are watching on things like iFollow, which I believe changes to Sky next season, and which will only get better, suddenly becomes a more engaging experience remotely as well. So, you basically got your match day revenue coming in from your ticket sales, but then you've got some extra revenue coming in from basically somebody live streaming, talking about the game that's on.
Yeah, and I think when you think about the 72 teams that are in the EFL, Championship League 1, League 2, I'm 40 this year. I can remember probably half of those 72 being in the Premier League at some point. You've got Cardiff City, Sunderland, Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry, Bradford. Do you know what I mean? There's a West Brom, Norwich. There's so many of them that would have had their moment in the sun, which gives you a little nostalgia. Or they've had a cup run in the last 30, 40 years that you can kind of play off. But also those unsung heroes at the club, like you said about. The thing I realised about Welcome to Wrexham, the first series, was Rob and Ryan really weren't in it that much. They weren't allowed in the country. So you're following Wayne that runs the pub, runs the turf. You're following the lady that looks after the fans with disabilities. You're following all these people who are nobodies. Like, they're not celebrities. They're not got a big profile, but they're real people. They got real passion. They got authentic love and passion for the club. And even though it's not your club, you love that they love their club the same as you love your club. So you don't have to be a Wrexham fan. You don't even have to be a football fan. It's people that are passionate about something and kind of give their all to it and make sacrifices for it. That's the kind of the beauty of storytelling, isn't it? I mean, it's the ups and downs, it's the highs and the lows.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that a lot of kind of marketeers in kind of, probably aren't on the curve of what's happening is that they put too much effort into creating content. They spend it. Listen, look, I've come from the era where we shot TV ads where crews were, to do a day's worth of filming was 50 grand, back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s. So, I've shot commercials. I've shot stuff with you. When we went to Orlando, that stuff for Adidas that we shot for the 2016 Rio Olympics, was probably 40, 50 grand a day. And we were being flown out to Orlando and things like that. And
the Superdrug commercial I did with you as well. That was
Superdrug. Yeah. I mean, we created winter in the middle of July. So
from Ibiza, I got off the plane from Ibiza. You picked me up. You took me to this. There's a snow machine outside, and I was
and listen, look, half the crew had just come off The Force Awakens, so they were top-notch London crew as well, and so, but that age is gone. It's still there to a certain degree, of course it is, but But people's mindsets need to change. And this is what I mean about engaging creators. These things are amazing at creating content. You have the ability here to create content that, if when 20 years ago or 15 years ago, when we first started shooting everything digitally, like kind of on a regular basis, when we had things like the red camera came out, this thing probably shoots things better than the red camera. And a lot of people, think that creating content is expensive. It's not. What people don't put enough effort in is the creativity and the ideas, and that's where I kind of come in. I've worked with a couple of championship clubs where I've just gone in, brainstormed ideas for content, and we just basically start telling this, and it's like, right, okay, right, well, now we've got to do it. And it's like, well, no, you don't. Just go and strike some deals with your third-party content creators who are already, the lad at SHD, for example, I bet he would bite Bradford City's right hand off to basically go and spend 10 minutes with Andy Cook.
Yeah.
Or go and spend, minutes with kind of various players, because it adds legitimacy to his content. He's not doing anything. He loves Bradford City. Okay, he might kind of say something critical about, the style of play and things like that. But that's football.
That's authentic, isn't it? The voice on the even when you're playing great football, there's someone that's unhappy about something.
Nobody wants to listen to a sock puppet. Nobody wants a puppet.
And you've got to be open to criticism as well, haven't you?
Absolutely.
You've got to be, as a club, you've got to be able to go, look, whatever the voice of the fans is, whether they're happy or unhappy, you've got to give them that voice. And we do a lot on Welsh football fans, and sometimes the results are not good, and you can't gloss over it because you lose your credibility with that audience.
The key word is authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to be authentic. It can't be forced. It's got to be genuine. It's got to be authentic. Otherwise, people will not watch it. I've made some shocking mistakes in my career where we've tried to dress things up that didn't need dressing up. Where we tried to falsify things, where we've tried to create situations. But actually, the stuff that works is the stuff we shot on the street. It just works. People just gravitate towards it. And I think football clubs could learn a lot that. The time is now to be a speedboat, move quick, don't dress up the content, too much. Yes, okay, it's got to have certain kind of quality standards, like the audio's got to be decent and various kind of things like that. But there's money there to be taken for a lot of these clubs. A lot of people creating YouTube videos that kill for 15,000 views, on regularly on a video. That can then grow. There is money to be made now. Obviously, it's not millions. You've got to get into having 5 million followers, 3 million followers, and regularly getting nearly 1 million views to be
money's money, isn't it? And it can be repurposed.
Yeah,
you bring a little bit of money and you spend it on something. That money then brings in more revenue. You've got to start somewhere. Yeah, and I think there's opportunities out there for clubs to tell stories, engage with their fan base. Story is the key word. I absolutely hate it when you see a club and they put out a bit of content and it's a slow motion montage or of the match, and it's kind of like, what's the value in that? How does this week's training session look different from last week's training session if it's all in slow motion? And where's the story? Where's the characters? What's going to connect with me? And a montage of a training session just isn't.
Right. Bradford City did this thing where they launched their new kit this year, right? And they do it every year, right? And it just frustrates the hell out of me. They do something where it's in a studio, they'll get a couple of players, they'll get a couple of female models, right? And it's all slow motion. Here's the pan back. There's Andy Cook holding a ball. There's the pan back. There's the pan up the shirt, and they're in the studio and they've got claret and amber flags and the lighting, and they'll have a bit of music, and then let's cut to the girl and she's holding the ball. And it's all very cliche. But the problem is, Dan, I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
I don't feel anything. Now, imagine that if they took 10 of the new shirts, right, and they had players just walking into a factory, right, and they basically donated 10 shirts to these guys in a factory who were all passionate Bradford City fans. You see dog-eared poster of Stuart McCall on the wall, things like that. And all of a sudden, then you've got the group of them, a couple of players and a couple of big lads, from the manufacturing floor, all in Bradford City shirts, and it's like, Bradford City 2023. Now, how does that? What's the difference there? This says I'm a club in the community.
I understand my audience.
Exactly, and the problem is that football clubs are trying to do things like they're trying to be Adidas, and I remember doing something for an Adidas shirt launch where it was like revealing the All-Star shirt for an NHL. And it was like, now I think back at that, why did we do it like that? We should have just gone into the community and gone and got some kids who were playing ice hockey on the street, and giving them some shirts, and probably the budget would have been better spent on that. And that's what I think a lot of clubs aren't understanding, is that the key to success lies within their communities. Well, they know that because they've got to get the bums on seats, but they've got to stop spending money on like kind of big concept ideas, get in the communities, engage them.
Well, it's like we made a documentary for the FAW called The Art of the Whale Shirt, which is on Red Wall Plus. So the new whale shirt come out kind of last year. And obviously, as a fan, you see it and you're just looking at the shirt. What does it look like? We found out through Adidas that the guy who designs the whale shirts out in Germany is from Swansea.
Right.
So we said to Adidas, like, could we come out there and chat to him? And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. So we went out to film him with Robert Earnshaw. Robert Earnshaw goes and talks to this lad from Swansea who works at Adidas. He's designed the Ajax Bob Marley shirt. He's designed the last couple of Wales kits, and he's telling us about why he came up with this design, why the pattern is like this, why these colours are on there, why these things put in there. So you've got a story. You've got a Welshman at Adidas telling you the story behind his design, and that's so much more engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the problem is, Dan, I don't think people take the time. So when we're doing advertising campaigns, right, and back in the kind of the 90s when I first started doing ideas for TV ads and things like that, one of the things that we were always told is research, because somewhere in all the reading is a nugget that you can latch onto, and that's what you're talking about. And I always remember there's a great Vimeo video about a Japanese motorbike maker. I've used it so many times with kind of clients who are talking about genuine, authentic stories. And he's this guy, and he basically just makes his own motorbikes. And it's just a beautiful video, really well shot. A lot of it's in the detail, and that's what you're talking about. And it's about these kind of stories about, like for example, for me, personal point of view. Okay, Bradford City, my dad has had a series of strokes. My dad's been going to Bradford City since he was 6 years old, right? So he's been going to Bradford City since the late 50s, okay? My dad can no longer get to games. He can hardly walk, right? He doesn't want the indignity of using a wheelchair, okay? Because he sees it as an indignity, but he would love to go to the games, right? And me and my dad's friend Eric keep on saying, oh, well, we'll take you and things like that. And he's like, there's a mental thing kind of in there, right? The thing that Bradford City could do, it's my dad's birthday in October. Imagine the powerful nature of like them sending a player. It doesn't have to be a flipping first team player. It could be somebody, on the fringes, come around to my dad's house and they pick him up, take him in a coach, a little like kind of bus, take him to the ground, get him into the ground. Okay, we're going to have to use the wheelchair. But the wheelchair thing suddenly becomes residual to the experience. And he basically he hasn't seen a game since Christmas. He hasn't been to a game since Christmas. He had a pretty bad stroke in about Feb, and and imagine the content that's out now. You can't tell me every club doesn't have a story like that.
Exactly. Like you say, like the lady in the ticket office, the guy who cleans the kit, the person who collects the balls, whatever it is. There are these stories ingrained in every club because there are people, real people, who are super passionate and love that club. So there's stories all over the place, and it's about mining through like your audience to find those kind of nuggets and those gems in there, instead of going right slow motion montage. We're gonna have an aerial shot to the stadium. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Yeah, tick, tick, tick. That's what everyone's doing.
And you think about what every school has every before they break for every summer. Every school has a sports day, right? It could be easily, you could take 10 players, right, and get some of your kind of engage with some of your local content creators, and basically send 10 players out to 10 schools with content creators, getting them taking part in the sports day. You've then got, you'll have some gold in there because something will happen. Some little kid will say something a bit cheeky, and it's all about, for me, it's all about setting up the situations, looking at what's happening organically that you don't have to arrange, that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, it doesn't take. It's not a massive logistical kind of nightmare. It's just, can we have a player for an hour? We're going to go to this school, and we're just gonna get them involved.
And listen, it gets harder the higher up you get, because the demands on players become more, because it becomes more monetized. When I spoke about the Premiership team and the beer thing, I saw the schedule, what they paid for, and it was literally 15 minutes with X player, and it was named the player and things like that, and it's down to that amount of time. They will come to this studio, you will have 15 minutes or 30 minutes with them, and then they leave, and that's it. Now, that isn't the same down in the lower leagues.
No,
the demands aren't as much. So and I kind of see, Bradford City also do this. They do these things where they have like various kind of company sponsors, and they'll do something where they'll have, we've got this company sponsor, and here he is holding a shirt, and there's a player stood next to him, and it's like, God, why aren't you using some of your content creators and go to this company and chat with them about, being a business that wants to be a part of the club and what it means to them, because you can guarantee that owner of the company will have been a fan of 20, 30 years, and we'll probably have some great stories to tell as well. And you can get a player interview. Listen, I could go on for ages, but I think what it is with me is that I kind of just think I see so many opportunities, and obviously my direct relationship is with Bradford City, and some clubs are doing more, some clubs aren't, and I kind of think that, God, I see so many of them not maximizing a potential revenue stream that's out there, and they could just doing it with little or no upfront cost.
And like we always say, that one thing doing the activity, another thing capturing the activity. So like, I know with Cardiff City, they do a lot in the schools, but they haven't been capturing that work in the schools. So it's like, we're doing lots in the community, but there's doing it, and then there's capturing it. You can share it. If it's 100 kids in a class, that's great. If you make a video and 10,000 kids all across the region see it, that's something completely different, and your reach is just even wider. So I like Jules. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, and I'm sure we'll go on forever. But
I'm pretty sure we haven't covered off all the subjects that we said that we talked. But I'm pretty sure we've hopefully given. I always say, Dan, people come into a video, and what do they know before they come in, and hopefully they've grown some way out the other side of it. So hopefully, if anybody's got to the end of here, hopefully they kind of recognize the passion that we both have for this kind of form of marketing as well, and hopefully it's given them some food for thought to kind of push on.
Exactly, that's it, and that's what this is all about. I mean, let's have conversations, let's tell stories, let's share best practice, let's share frustrations, and hopefully someone out there can kind of take information from it, and it helps them in what they're doing. So just going to go through my outro. I've scripted out now, so thank you, Julian, for sharing your thoughts and ideas. There's plenty of great stuff in there. Thank you to those watching or listening for taking the time to indulge myself and Julian. We hope it was useful. Don't forget to like and share this episode, and subscribe to the channel for more content.